And there we go. Good morning, Sharon.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning.
All right. And Sharon is going to be reading to us from Ken Wapnick's on Parents and Children. So I'm turning the mic over to you, my dear.
Thank
And
you very
here we
much.
go.
Okay. I'm going to start out today with Ken Wapnick's book called Parents and Children, Our Most Difficult Classroom, Part 1. So Ken has an introduction here. And this is the most difficult classroom for this mind because I had lasting issues with my mother and father and lasting issues with my children. So let's see what Ken has to say. I do not think anyone would disagree that our most difficult classroom is parents and children, either from the point of view of being a child and growing up, or being a parent and growing down, as it were, as in taking care of elderly parents. As is discussed throughout these books, our relationship with our parents is the earthly prototype for all the special relationships that follow, including those we establish with our children. This relationship therefore harbors within the entirety of the ego thought system of separation, guilt, attack, and loss. It is almost impossible to conceive that anyone could be helpful who had not healed the primary relationship that no one here can avoid. Indeed, without its healing, the special relationship with our parents would stand as a barrier to healing our relationship with God, the most primary relationship of all. And so, as Jesus teaches us in A Course in Miracles, if we want the goal, awakening from the dream of guilt and returning home, we must also accept the means he provides for giving our special relationships. Not to forgive, therefore, reflects our decision to remain asleep, midst dreams of victimization, abuse, misery, and pain. Our parents offer us an opportunity, wonderful opportunity to speed our way along the journey with Jesus as our guide. Why he repeatedly asks, would we choose not to walk with him? And what does that mean? Well, Jesus is here. We are all together here. Now, when I say that, this is a reflection of where we live all the time, because we never left God. And for this mind, I was confused by that and also a little afraid at one time because it says God doesn't know we're here. But the truth is, we are God's son, just like Jesus. And we all fell asleep and we dreamt the Big Bang. As soon as we had this thought, out blew this world without any idea of what it means. And hence, then we started to make up our stories. They say the script's written, and I believe that's true. It's that the ego doesn't go down easy in these relationships. And the way I see it with my children and my parents, it's been special love and special hate. And I think the guilt of hating one's child is not received as well as when you're angry with your parents, but they're one of the same. Because every relationship is an attack on God, and God is the creator of who we are. And we can only be who we are in the moment, which is heaven. Heaven is a reflection of perfect oneness. So this space that we're in, it becomes alive. That's what I'm experiencing. However, I still have attachments, and I believe the lessons that I will be receiving would probably take place all through this mind body's life in this seeming world. And I say seeming because all I'm ever doing is looking at my own mind and my concepts. You know, concepts are basically images. And every one of those images is put to us by us, the dreamer of the dream. So it is my hope these books provide the impetus to continue and complete this journey for our good and the good of the sonship. So what I found in reading, I've had this book for a long time, and, you know, both my boys, you know, I've had special relationships with. And I'd be lying to say I never get frustrated, that I've never said things that I wish I hadn't said, because the ego mind always thinks it's right. And it wants us to be treated in a way that is impossible, because we are living in this seeming duality of a dream. And what I found in my mind was I had a lot of guilt to let go of my children. What kind of mother would let go of their children? That's what would come up. What kind of mother wouldn't worry about their children? But when I stop and I look, who are these children? These children are really my brothers and sisters. There's nothing here that ever happened. The dream of separation is it's not a personal dream. It's the dream that oneness is having, the one mind with itself. So in order to let all of this go, it takes honesty. And the honesty is, this is my most difficult classroom. Today it's my grandchildren's 16th birthday. They turned 16, well, today, and and it's September 24th. So I'm taking them out and I'm all excited because they haven't lived here on their birthday. They came always in Christmas, and I think there was during COVID, they were here for a year, and they would also come in the summer. But having them, they chose to move here for a lot of reasons of chaos, because we all are attracted to the laws of chaos. We like chaos. That is the conditioned mind. It's all chaotic. So now I'm reaching deeper in and realizing that nothing ever happened. And in order to really say that, it's to bring and flush up all the garbage that my mind has made up. So at the beginning of the 3-day academy class on parents and children, I briefly reviewed the suggested reading list we had provided for the participants. Readers of these 2 volumes are encouraged to look at these as well, for they provide helpful background for the ensuing discussions. You know, I could go on and on about, because this covers like creating versus self-image, right teaching, right learning, the ego and false autonomy, the illusion and reality of love, the choice for completion, and most of all, the lesson 193, all things are lessons God would have me learn, paints a more general picture of how everything in our life offers us opportunity to forgive. Now, forgive is only happening in my mind. So there's no people out there. It's my mind that made up all these stories. And so the only being that I need to forgive is my mind, not the person, because the person is just a figment of this mind's imagination. So it's important to own where you're at, because still to this day, you know, I had a very, you know, addiction to being a people pleaser. And with my children, I was very much there for them. And I think that's the way psychology works in the mind, because I had grievances with my mother and father, and I was going to make it up through my children, you know, by giving them what maybe I didn't get. And it's always about the getting. The truth is, I got what I needed. And, you know, years ago, I was told that you don't get what you want, you get what you need. And I remember the ego going off saying, what do you mean we don't get what we need? And that is the anger of the ego. You can't get what you need, because these are lessons that always are about letting it go. But you can't let a relationship that means more to this mind than God, because that's really the truth. When I put my children in front of God, I'm denying my inheritance, and I'm also sitting in this hell where the Holy Spirit's always here. I mean, that's who walks with me. So, you know, he's saying, I begin with a message Jesus had given to Helen Schuckman for William Thetford, her associate and collaborator in the course's teachings. So it's just about, the message contains some significant material about parents and children, although its context was totally different. It was originally intended to help Bill with his fear. Terror might be a better word to describe his feeling of public speaking and teaching, despite possessing a wonderful speaking and also incidentally singing voice, in addition to having a clever sense of humor. You know, when you really look at all this, the ego's not our friend. You know, when I say something to a friend, the ego come back and say, did I hurt their feelings? Did I say the right thing? And behind that is, do they like me? Do they accept me? This is all going on in mind only, not in the world, in the dream of a nightmare. And what I see in this mind is the addiction I have to guilt. And that sounds insane, but I'm not going to say that I'm not insane when I'm in the wrong mind, because I am. And I want to own that, because, you know, a lot of people say, be honest. And the honesty is that I have as much hate as everyone seemingly out there, because in a hologram, it's all parts of the whole. So if I see something out there, I am seeing something in me that I'm not looking at. I mean, if I still find fault with politicians, right? What am I really saying? I can hide here because God's going to get me. That's what I'm really saying. I can hide here so everybody will feel bad, because I just don't want that nominee to win for senator, president, whatever you want to say. I mean, I care about the world. Well, there is no world. The world is concepts, images that I've made up. And to 100% accept everything as it is, the most important thing is to remember that this mind is responsible for what it sees. It's always about the M with a capital, the me with a capital M. So Ken is very, he writes a lot of stuff. I guess most of us know. Here's coming from the ego mind, me saying he's long-winded. You know, sometimes my ego will say, well, come on, Ken, just cut to the chase. Well, if you really look at his work, he's an artist. What's coming through him is a symphony. And he was a scholar. So to appreciate the fact that we respect Jesus in the dream, Ken is the same. We all are, whoever seemingly passes from this dream. So in discussing any aspect of the course, and especially in this message, it is imperative to understand the relationship between mind and body. Jesus explains this in the beginning of the text, when in the context of sickness, he discusses the causal confusion inherent in believing that the body, our physical, psychological self, is the determiner of our behavior. You know, it's all about shame, because the ego shames us into believing there's something out there that is going to hurt us, to bring our life to an end. And then we read other books, as I did, and we are life. To say that I'm this, you know, Eckhart Tolle has said, to think you're a body or someone else is a body. And I don't know the word he used, but what I think he was describing is, it's harmful. It's very harmful. It's a toxic way to go about the world, because at any moment, this body can fold. It's a temporary form. And when I feel like I'm always here, I feel like the projector, really, from just observing what's going on here, the projector goes in and out, you know. So who was living this life? Well, it was consciousness. It was the I am presence, right? So let's say I have like a grandchild. Well, I do have a grandchildren that are having issues. But the thing is, isn't that their path? Isn't it important for me to understand that I cannot save one person in this dream? Because basically the only way of healing is to be honest. And to also heal is to be honest with the I am presence or Jesus or Holy Spirit or God, whichever you want to call it. To say basically that I have to confess that I liked the separation, or else I would be further along in the process, because liking this, the addiction is pleasure, because this dream is one of pain. But the way the ego treats, at least for this mind, is it's like in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, she wanted to give Snow White an apple. She said that would help her, but instead she went to sleep just like we are. Or like Alice in Wonderland when she went down the rabbit hole, because that's what this is. It's a rabbit hole. And I think for this mind, it was hooked on pleasure. Well, if I just do this, then I'll get this, right? I could just have that chocolate piece of fudge, or I could have, that hoagie, and there's nothing wrong with all that. But the ego's in a perpetual place of pleasure. It wants us to know it doesn't all suck because we can have pleasure here. Well, the pleasure is just false, because as soon as I believe that this mind is special and that it's real, I can lose everything. And to just, people could say, or seeming people out there could say, well, Sharon, you stuck with the course. I didn't. I'm being lived to just do everything. All the words that are coming out of my mouth are happening from the one consciousness. There's no difference with anyone that's seemingly out there. That's why the course emphasizes go within, go within, go within. It's funny. I've learned a lot in like the 18, 19 years I've been in this process, that a lot of seeming teachers are selling awakening, and you cannot get there from that. You can only really, it resonates, and you can model the idea that perhaps that teacher is observing their mind through the day, that they are doing the work. But when they say, I can awaken you, that's not necessarily true, because it's happening organically. It's not happening, and it's happening by you with a capital Y, right? So he's saying here, in the text, chapter 2, it's saying sickness or not right-mindedness is the result of level confusion, because it always entails the belief that what is amiss on one level can adversely affect another. We have referred to miracles as the means of correcting level confusion. For all mistakes must be corrected at the level on which they occur. Only the mind is capable of error. And what is error? It's miscreation. It's all of the stuff that we see seemingly out there. The body can act wrongly only when it's responding to misthought. And these thoughts come quickly, So anyway, it is the decision-making mind that chooses everything about our worldly existence. So it is the ego, but it's this decision maker. And I would say that Ken coined that phrase, decision maker. I don't know if it's in the course, but I do think from just all the reading I've done over the years that he actually would say, well, it's the decision maker, because there's rules for decision. It's mine. You're not this body. So when the mind decides, that you're going to go on this path, it already has the whole thing laid out, because it's already over, right? So it is the decision-making mind that chooses everything about our worldly existence, while our bodies simply follow as they are directed by the mind. This is important to consider in reading Jesus's message, as his point to Bill is that he still chooses to feel victimized by his parents. Raise your hand, Sharon. There are times that I do that too. Now, I did not stay, because if you go to other teachings, it's not emphasized, because they're not this is a psychological, spiritual teaching. And the psychology that it has in there is what attracted this mind to the course, because the psychological mind, or, it's just constantly trying to tell you or me or my mind that this is real, that I could screw it up, that I could fail, And then what? Then I'll have to be thinking the rest of my life. That is not, the ego will fall quickly. And whether we get another ego or not, I do not know. But I think that God is a loving God, and that's who we really are. We're not in heaven like in reality, because we never left. The Creator knew at that moment that we were just dreaming. And the question comes up, how could that be? Why wouldn't we remember? Well, it's divine hypnosis. We're being hypnotized by our mind to believe that this isn't real and that we are real as people, and we're not. So it's a process, and one that it requires gentleness. And when you get to the manual, you see that all of the things that Jesus is giving us, gentleness is one of the most important things, to be gentle with others and yourself, because everybody's fighting a hard battle with guilt. We're entrenched with guilt from the one mind. I mean, how else could we seemingly see this world, right? This is important to consider in reading Jesus's message, as his point to Bill is that he still chooses to feel victimized by his parents. He has retained memories of the past in order to fulfill his mind's wishes in the present, to perceive himself unfairly treated. Yet the past is gone, and it can have no effect upon, unless our minds choose in the present to give it that power. So how do we take our power back? Well, if we're coming from the small mind, we are not going to be able to do that, because it's a small mind. It's not, we're placed small when we're in the ego. You know, it's like the whole thing is a castle of the world, and we each have our own private castle, and each door needs to be cleaned out. And it needs to be cleaned out with honesty, patience, gentleness. It's all of that. It requires the right-minded teacher to listen to in every moment. And that is, for this mind, a challenge. I still go into wrong-mindedness, and it doesn't help me. It's hurting me in every relationship I have. To make myself wrong would be a judgment. I'm not wrong. This is where I am. And this is I think when I let go of the story with my parents and my children, I think that I'll be almost like completely done, because even as I take a judgment on the presidential election, what I have to think about that is useless. Sure, I'm going to prefer one over the other. Just like when I was growing up, I preferred one parent from the other. And for me, it was my dad I favored. And my mom was not, she wasn't, I was scared of her. You know, if she screamed at me, and, you know, in the story, Sharon was born when, you know, my mom delivered me paralyzed from polio, and she was taken away. So I never bonded with her. And they almost call it a trauma bond, because when she did come home, she was traumatized. And of course, she projected it all over the house. And I have a lot of compassion for her. And I also know that she did the best she could. But who has an easy part? No, I mean, no one. It can't be easy, because it's made of conflict. It's made of right and wrong, up and down. It's all about that. And what are these effects that guilt offers? Simply stated, it affirms the reality of our separated state, since guilt means our sin is real. And sin is another word for separation, which in turn means that our separation actually occurred. Indeed, our guilt is a small price to pay for the distinctiveness of ego existence, instead of the abstract oneness of heaven's being. But these words just flow out of him, don't they? Furthermore, the ego takes our mind, guilt, represses it, and then projects it onto others so that they would be found guilty of sin that deserves God's eternal punishment. You know, when course students will say, like, you know, when you die, if you haven't like gotten rid of all this, then you'll still be thinking. Well, I don't feel, like I said before, that could be true, because If you believe in guilt, you still believe in punishment. And our Father knows that we didn't do anything. We had a thought, a misthought, a misperception, right? Indeed, our guilt is a small price to pay for the distinctiveness of ego existence instead of the abstract oneness of heaven's being. Furthermore, the ego takes our mind's guilt, represses it, and then projects it onto others so that they would be found guilty of sin that deserves hope to retain our innocence in the face of someone else's sin. Isn't that interesting? Like, I feel like the victim role was like an addiction that is so, wired into this mind, and to release it is to just not engage with it. It's all guilt, but what I need to always remember is the attack I'm doing is on myself, the God that is in charge, or the Tao, whatever you want to talk about, whichever part it is. So furthermore, the ego takes our mind's guilt, represses it, and then projects it onto others so that they would be found guilty of sin that deserves God's eternal punishment. Magically, therefore, we hope to retain our innocence in the face of someone else's sin. I would just say, why did he do that? Why didn't my ex-husband do what he did? Like, why? Well, it sounds like he did a lot of horrible things, but he was just looking at his thoughts and blaming me. And it was just so easy to do that. But for me to embellish and stay in that guilt is for me to believe it really happened. I mean, a dream is a dream is a dream. If you had a dream last night, you don't remember it usually, and it doesn't matter. That's pretty much the way I see this world now, at least at this moment, until I don't, right? Magically, therefore, we hope to retain our innocence in the face of someone else's sin. The parent-child relationship offers all ample opportunities to play out this dynamic of innocence achieved at the expense of another's sin. The theme of chosen victimization, the result of projected guilt, will run throughout the book, and Jesus' message to Bill introduces the concept to him and to us all. The message. Now, he's talking now to Helen. As you, Helen, have so often said, no one has adopted all of his parents' attitudes as his own. And I would say that's true for me, because I didn't want to say the things my mother said to my children. I didn't want to say them because they were hurtful. I wanted to be different. And I say, after all these years, my mother did not have as good a part in the play as me. Because she, to my understanding, she's free. And when she passed, it was like 13, it'll be 14 years ago, I think, in February. I think it's February 22nd. And it wasn't, I didn't really grieve, but what happened was a lot of unworked out conflict came up. So I needed to see somebody for that. At the time, the Holy Spirit was just a faint memory. I didn't have a connection like I do now. But, Jesus will use every resource that he can to get us to a place where we're willing to let it all go. Okay. What I'm trying to get today is to be totally honest, 100% patient, and to realize that I am gentle, that I am kind. And that's because of the Father that made me in creation, right? So in every case, there has been a long process of choice in which the individual, the child, has escaped from those he himself vetoed, while retaining those he voted for. Bill has not retained his parents' political beliefs, in spite of the particular kind of newspaper that constituted their own reading matter in this area. The reason why he could do this was because he believed he was free in this area. Jesus is explaining that Bill decided which attitudes he would be free from and which he would be enslaved by. His parents thus were totally irrelevant to this equation. He simply used them as an excuse for being bound in certain areas and free in others. Now, that's very true for this mind. It's very true for Sharon. You know, it's like you're hungry and you want to eat something really good. That's pretty much what victimization does, because it's a sure fit for you to feel victimized, Sharon, and for you to continue to say, they have to change or else I can't have peace. And that is not so. So anyway, he says, he simply used them as an excuse for being bound in certain areas and free in others. We need to realize our dishonesty when we claim we are what our parents made us to be. The truth is that we made a choice in the past, which we uphold in the present, to retain in memory events as reasons now. That's how insane I am when I bring back the past. There's nothing happening at all. It's a story that I'm dreaming of, right? And, the ego gets in there and says, well, Sharon, you never got you can't comprehend things like other people, blah, 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 blah. All of that is hogwash, because the who I really am has nothing to do with Sharon, nothing to do with the character. It's saying, guys, listen, I'm watching this. And it's interesting because the witnessing eventually goes away and you just see stillness. That's what I have read. Do I know that for a fact? No, it doesn't really matter, because this again is a reflection of heaven. So it's still illusory, but it makes us feel better in the dream, right? There was a prominent psychological theory in the 1960s, for the most part discarded, called the schizophrenic mother. It especially said it was the disturbed mother who made her poor innocent child schizophrenic. While there are certainly disturbed mothers and fathers who are not healthy influence on their children, the truth remains that no one makes anyone anything. This is an essential part of Jesus's message, as we have just seen. So if I say I'm this way because of what happened, first off, that is not who I really am, because that was like a fabrication of ideas in my mind. And the only way I can transition these ideas is to allow Jesus or Holy Spirit or whoever is in charge for that moment to take it. Because you don't need it. You don't need much of what we have anyway. I mean, our needs are simple. Our needs are be here now. And judgment is always hurting me. So anyway, it says, essentially said it was the disturbed mother who made her poor, innocent child schizophrenic. While there are certainly influence on their children, the truth remains that no one makes anyone schizophrenic. No one makes anyone anything. This is an essential part of Jesus's message, as we have just seen. Jesus most explains what truly transpired between Bill and his parents in terms of this issue of attitude. And see, that's why Jerry Zampolsky called his place attitudinal living, because it's all about attitude. Am I in my right mind or wrong mind? If you're in the wrong mind, you cannot have an attitude that isn't built on sin, guilt, and fear. The right-mindedness is I'm whole, I'm home, and all is well. It's that simple. But, for this mind, readiness had to come in. And also that to me means ripeness. When the ego finally says, okay, I can't do this anymore. This is not working. Because it can't work. It's set up to fail. And then this ego in this mind says, well, I'd like to help my family, because then they'll feel better. And that's all part of the manipulation of the ego. Helping another it's not possible. You can be loving, but you can't change it. You can't change someone's thinking. I'm just going to take a glass of water. I want to thank Spirit at this moment, because I feel strongly now that Spirit made all the decisions that needed to be made and was right by my side. And to thank a mind that doesn't know what I am is ludicrous. Why would I thank a mind that is just giving me my memories, which were never easy either, you know? And I have to say that I don't know many beings that are here on this planet that have had an easy life. It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be challenging. It's supposed to give us a lot of good food to make our wholeness come alive, right? Jesus never explains what truly transpired. Hi, Care, between Bill and his parents in terms of this issue of attitude. There must be some acute problem of his own that would make him so eager to accept their misperception of his own worth. One of Bill's childhood experience was that his parents did not value him. That was a belief he had. I'm almost sure that Bill's parents valued him. But again, what the interpreter does in an ego dreams is it embellishes everything that's ever said and makes the seeming other cruel. It just does. And it is a cruel dream too. Driving on, let me where you are, Karen. Driving on my way home from doctor's oh, good. Okay, so in any case, it goes on and says, there must be an acute problem of his own that would make him so eager to accept their misperception of his own worth. Now look what he's saying here. There must be some acute problem of his own that would make him so eager to accept their misperception. It's the guilt. Our guilt is so entrenched in our being and confusing that we end up, or I end up, believing I'd rather say, look what he did, than to say, I'm scared of God. Because, you know, as far as I was concerned, I didn't even know who God was. You know, I was Jewish and I didn't really go to synagogue that much. And I had friends that weren't Jewish and were Jewish, but I had a lot of judgments, basically on both, because these judgments are always about me. And all I'm doing is projecting my own guilt in my consciousness onto seeming beings that aren't even real. And these are concepts. So to own 100% concepts in every moment is to stop, look, and then listen. Listen for the right-mindedness, because I have been cocky, believing, you know, getting up in the morning, walking my dogs, talking and helping different people that seemingly have problems, you know, on my walk, doing anything to get away from the silence. That's all that's really here. And it is a miracle that we're here. It's a miracle that we could even blow out a world seemingly like this. And the only way that I could have fun in this world is to know that I'm not here. That is the truth. Anyway, he said, one of Bill's childhood experience was that his parents did not value him. His older sister died as a child, and his parents were devastated by her death. My God, if I had died or anyone in my family, my mother told us always that will kill her. Now, I came from a very neurotic Jewish family. So my mother would say, she had 4 girls, and she would say, I don't want you all together in the car, because if I lose one of you, I'm ruined. I mean, when a child dies, it ruins your life. This is what I heard all through my life. And when I had children, it stayed there, because my mother was projecting her guilt onto us, her fear of God. She wasn't aware of it, but towards her death, she used to say, why is it when I'm quiet, I'm so happy? This is the kind of stuff she would say to me. Why is it that when I'm quiet and I'm in silence, I feel good? You see, every one of us on some level of this mind knows this is not our reality. Our reality is wholeness, oneness. Nobody likes it here. And there were times, when Ken would say things and I was so in my ego, I would think it was harsh because he slams the ego because the ego is a drama queen. That's basically what it is. It tells story after story after story until finally from this mind, I just made myself sick. I left Philadelphia realizing that I don't even want to see half the people because my story was so overused of victimhood and poor Sharon. But when I got here, I was to Altoona and went to the 12 steps. I felt like I met my family for the first time because everybody was honest about their story. And what I saw was they had stories similar to mine. And that was a tremendous release from a layer, or maybe a little bit of a layer from guilt. I mean, I took 2 years to do the 4th step when you let go of things. Well, I didn't continue because the course came in my life. And all I wanted was to know that, thank you, God, this is not real. I mean, the thing is, I felt like a failure. I lost completely everything at 40. And then I worked to try to get it from my ex-husband for 9 years because I think that what he did was just kind of, again, it was part of our script, was to attack me, basically, because I love being with my students and my children, but not him. We had different interests. He was a clubber. He liked other women. I was real family oriented. I was still trying as the persona of getting a family that was healthy. Good luck. I thought, well, now he's ruining my story because he did some very dramatic things to this mind and to my kids' minds. And the 3 of us, I considered victims. Okay, Kara, go ahead, take the mic. I'd love it.
First of all, I want to say how much I freaking love you, girl. You're just like such a great. I got my mask on because I just left the doctor's office and I didn't take it off yet. That's why I look funny.
You look so cute to
Anyway,
me. I don't know.
I want to say that it's so funny because, we think you want a better family. You want it to be different than your family. And this is what the course is teaching us. There's not
I lost you. Did your mic drop?
matter what you think or believe, it's only this keeps just teaching us over and over again that it's only our mind that we change our mind. And this is what I love about this course. It's continually teaching us this, and you're reaffirming this, that you can do everything you think that's good out here, the perfect husband, the perfect family, the perfect kid. None of it matters, and it's never going to be perfect. I mean, I just left the doctor and I'm like, I'm going to another doctor later on today. It's like it's like, what the hell, man? I'm getting surgery October 10th. I got to take care of this body. But it's my mind that I'm really healing and looking at this. Like, I can see this differently. I'm not a victim of the world I see. I can be happy no matter what. I can be at peace no matter whatever's going on here. So I just wanted to say thank you because I just love your honesty. I love your sharing. And my earbud just fell out. I got to put it back in.
Yeah, I mean, again, I could not be honest really like I am now because I was still in story. And now the honesty is basically that it was always me dreaming of Sharon, dreaming of a character that, pretty much was an addiction. It really is an addiction to believe that we could usurp the power of our creator. We cannot usurp that. So, and if you talk to it, my friend Tracy calls this plane the 3rd dimension, and we want to go higher into 4th and 5th dimensional process. Anyway, when Bill was around 8 or 9 years old, he developed rheumatic fever and was seriously ill. Now, I related to Bill Thetford more than Helen. He was sensitive, and, I guess it was just Helen, I guess, somewhat had like, I'm grateful to Helen, but I'm also seeing that Helen was a little bit of a snob, where Bill was very, very honest. But this is the ego trying to figure out what these two, who would be Sharon's friend, when in fact, there's just oneness dreaming. So, it's kind of interesting when you finally let go and you realize that you can't get one thing in this world, not a thing. And, you know, I always think, Karen, that you are, you know, actually not complaining about a body sometimes for this mind is hard because, you know, there was some kind of hypochondria, like that was some way for this character to get love. You know, that was just another manipulation from the ego. So I have to own that and realize no matter what happens to this body, that's not who I am. The body is just a communication device. It doesn't serve us at all except to get us through to the right mind. That's it. It's completely an instrument. And the way you know, every spiritual teaching is that it's okay to use the body mind as a tool, but don't make it your teacher because it's going to bring you hell. And it does. It does. It's just, you know, I mean, you know, I was like the good girl, but inside I had so much hate. And I haven't, like, you know, how Karen, you always say, like, you know, we have to look at the darkness to let it go. Well, it's taken me a long time. And I was as hateful as anybody out there. I mean, I was as hateful as probably in my mind as, and I hate to say this, but Hitler came into this process from our chaos in our mind. Now, of course, there's no Hitler, there's no Sharon, there's no Donald Trump, but all these people are players for, and I always say it's the sin and the sinner. I mean, the saint and the sinner. You know, the saint is always the good and the sinner is always bad, but that's what this dream is. You know, Shakespeare gave us a lot of high thought in his teachings, in everything that he represented, you know, and, you know, a lot of egos, including this one, would say what Shakespeare said, like the world is a stage and everything like that. And I would just think it was just a saying and it didn't mean anything. Well, it means everything. This is a movie. You never have to, you never have to watch a movie. There's Carol Howell. Yay. Carol, hi. I can't hear you. Or maybe it's my.
No, she's muted. Unmute yourself, please, Carol.
There you go.
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
Okay.
Carol.
Well,
Oh, you're
how
beautiful.
Thank you. It's like,
I spoke to you years ago. I called you like it was like, I guess 20 years ago because my son was, you know, on drugs and all of that. And
yes.
Yeah. but it was, but you helped so many. But you know, we talk about you every week because your book is brilliant. It's absolutely what came through you is just brilliant.
Well, it was, I waited quite a long time to do it. And not for any particular reason. Well, I think at first somebody said, oh, somebody that I'd never heard of had decided they were going to write Bill's biography. And it's like, well, the somebody I'd never heard of, I actually literally waited. I thought, well, if somebody else is determined to do this, well, then I'll just check this out. Well, the somebody never wrote anything. And so I started the process, but it was a long process because I knew that to do it right, I was going to have to interview a great many people, which I did. Lots and lots of people from every aspect of his life, you know, going, you know, his personal life and his business life and everything else. And what was really fascinating to me, sort of in terms of how we're always taken care of for whatever it is we need to do, about 8 years before I started to write this, I got a call from some unknown person, which, you know, I always get calls from unknown persons, so that wasn't unusual, but somebody up in, this man had just, this is when I lived in Florida, this man had just moved to Florida from New York, and some friend in New York had given him, I don't know, some of my DVDs or something, you know, back when that was the way one sent out information. And the person said, oh, just give her a call. So as we chatted away, kind of getting acquainted, he said that he had worked with Bill Thetford at the CIA. I thought, how amazing and how interesting. And we got to be quite good friends after he moved to Florida. He wasn't in the Orlando area. But when it was time to write this book, here I've got this fantastic resource because he got me in touch with a bunch of other people from the CIA and people who were actually still alive that were with Bill back then, so that a really accurate picture could be presented rather than my just having to wonder or invent something or make that a very short chapter or something like that. So I felt like it was it was I was very cared for the whole time I was trying to do this.
There's always a presence. The presence is what we are, and the presence
Yes.
is doing it.
Yes.
And I think until we really have, miracles happen slowly. And for me, it's taken a while, but I'm, every part of the course now, I can live it now. But I have to own everything too, because that's what I'm talking about. I'm reading Ken Walt. We do yours at 10:30, but we want to hear you now because we are honored that you are here. This is
bless
Lynn
her.
is our admin, Lynn Johnson. She has done all this for us, and we have a great group of people.
Wonderful. So do you meet on a weekly basis?
Every Tuesday we do, well, now I'm going to do parents and children, the most difficult. That was my most difficult classroom. And Ken was one of my, significant teachers. Like he just, love him. And so we meet and we do, Lynn and I do it at 10:30, but the whole group we welcome, because your book is absolutely the whole course, really, if you look at it.
Yes.
Through Bill's.
Yes.
Like, it's so brilliant. Like, I'm like, oh my God, the way you put things together.
Well,
anyway, I'm going to hand the mic over to Lynn now, because she is the admin, and I'm going to we're going to probably read it because Lynn knows where we are in that book. I was talking about like the two books that we're looking at now is Absence of Felicity and Never Forget to Laugh. For me, it was always about their story. I have the book, A Journey Without Distance. I must have read it like 3 times.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's all the players, so I love it.
Yeah.
And I was going to call you Dove. I thought, oh, he doesn't know she's here yet. Okay.
There he is. There he is. Well, the last time I saw Ken, not long before he died, except we didn't know he was going to be dying, at that stage of the game. But I was down in Southern California doing a presentation for Beverly Hutchison's, event that she did, for a long time every year. And it just worked out that I could stay a couple of days longer. So I took a car down to Temecula where Ken lived. And it just so happened that on that day, he didn't have anything scheduled and his wife was gone. I can't remember why or where she was. So we had the entire day by ourselves. And it was just lovely. We had the most wonderful time. And he had been very, very cooperative and helpful when I was researching for the book, because he had sort of an inside story in a way that other people didn't. And of course, there are a lot of stories that fly around, but it was like being able to go directly to the source of somebody who had been present at a lot of that was incredibly helpful. So it was lovely.
It's just beautiful. That's, you are our teachers, but we are grateful.
Yeah. Well,
we are so grateful that you came here today.
It's something I love to do. I started thinking, I started being interested in how does life work really when I was a little kid. And I remember when we moved, I grew up in Arkansas. And I remember when we moved from Fayetteville to Fort Smith, I was about 6 years old. And we went to the new little Episcopal church that I grew up in. Very lovely, erudite people, like college professor types who were the ministers. And they were going blah, 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 whatever it was. And at 6 years old, I started having a very adult thoughts that it was sort of like that just came. And this thought was, that's not how it is. These adults don't really know what the message is. And so the whole time I was growing up, I would just sort of get information and I learned to compartmentalize, like okay, it's kind of okay to acknowledge that I know this because I've learned it, and that's what you're supposed to do in this world. But here's the stuff I know just because I know it, and that I have to keep quiet about. It was very weird. But nevertheless, well, there's my friend Alan.
I
As
saw
you
him on Sunday, I think. Yeah.
Hi, Alan. Welcome.
Alan looks better than I've ever seen him in his whole life. Some great relaxation or something has occurred, some sort of claiming of who he really is. And you can tell it. Can you tell it when you look in the mirror?
I know something's different since the book came out, actually, and since I, spent 10 years, I don't want to say struggling. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have big construction outside. I'll turn off my audio in a second.
You
But
can't,
yeah,
We
it's a
can't
new
Can't
life.
hear it.
can't hear it.
Oh, okay.
No.
They're actually drilling the outside wall because there's a problem with the mortar. Oh, yeah. So thank you, Carol. But I do feel that I have more to offer. How about that?
It's like it's as if you have claimed who you really are.
Well,
If
you know what helped? I'll tell you what helped, Carol. This book helped.
that,
Can
I
I
just
just,
happen to have this nearby.
you
all
just
right,
happen to have it.
just for the group's sake, can you please introduce yourself, Alan?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. My name is Alan Ishak. I'm speaking from Greenwich Village, where I think Dove had his early practices in the course, and I wrote a book called Never. Sorry, I didn't write a book called Never. She did. No, I wrote a book called The Mystic and the Muse, which is a novel that is based on the Course in Miracles. In fact, the characters speak Course language in the dialogue, and it came out in June, and I'm having a lot of fun because all these people from my past life from 50 years ago are reaching out saying they read it, and then we're getting together. And it's just been a miracle. A miracle. How about that?
Yeah. How unsurprising.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey, I'm just so excited. First off, that Carol, that you accepted our invitation to come in here. You're going to find here that there's a group of people that probably unlike many other groups, and maybe like many other groups, I don't know, how would I know?
Yeah.
But but a group of people that are very open and sharing, and there is a absolute equality here. And of course, obviously, we're here respecting you as, having written this book that we're studying, and that makes me really, really just almost giddy. It's just, I don't know, I don't know, Sharon, you feel the same way. And then, Carol, I've met you and talked to you before, and seen you at conferences, and have always experienced you as a very warm and loving person, even remembering who I was after we hadn't seen each other for some long time. That means something to me. I mean, if I can remember who you are, but obviously, but for you to remember who I was, it's like Ken. Ken was like that too. He just had this amazing way of just touching people and loving people. But as I was beginning to say, this group, these people that are in this group, we see each other as absolute equals. There are no leaders. There are no, I kind of organize things. So, but definitely do not take a leadership role in any
Sure.
other than just to coordinate stuff that's going on. So you're going to find, if you if you go along, if you come along with us,
Yeah.
you're going to find a group of people who will absolutely love you unconditionally and respect you as a holy son of God, and be
That's
grateful that you joined us because you're a holy son of God. So that's my welcome to you, Carol Howe.
Thank you. And I follow my intuition about this sort of thing because I get a lot of requests for all sorts of things, some reasonable, some unreasonable, and so on and so forth. And I don't say yes to everything because either the way I decide anything is there a sense of kind of uplift, if you will, that's kind of a yes for me, or does it feel flat? In which case it's a no. but it's not like a voice, but it's just a sense of, is there energy in this or not? And I'm
Wow.
sure you all do the same thing.
Yeah, and I absolutely appreciate that because when David, when Dove first told me that he had invited you, I was just so excited and so happy, and still having those little doubts of like, well, she's probably going to look at this and go, who are these people and what are they up to?
Never,
I'm not interested.
never.
I mean, because that's how the doubter in me goes on,
Yeah.
thinking that we're not worthy of your presence, and and that, of course, that's my own personal belief or thought about myself that is constantly running around in my consciousness. So that when you appeared in the room, it was like, honestly, it just was like, you were wrong, Lynn. You were wrong. You
I'm so
definitely
glad
deserve
you
her.
brought that up because, as you can imagine, I do a vast amount of private counseling with people. And a sort of a process that has developed itself over the years that I take people through. But when I get to the point of where it's germane for this part of the conversation, the most common word I hear when people say what they really believe about themselves is that they're unworthy of all things. That seems to be the universal great lie that we have adopted somehow, because there's a great many adjectives in the dictionary, but this is the one that so often people feel like they are undeserving or unworthy, far and away the top two words. And you go, oh, and so I do a little explanation about where in the world that comes from. In other words, it's stuff that when we're maybe I should tell your whole group rather than telling you now. But in any event, it has to do at the time and space level with stuff that we inexpertly interpret before we're 3 years old and we don't have a functioning left brain. The left brain is the thinking, organizing, frontal lobe part of the brain. And that part of the brain isn't functioning yet. And therefore, there's kind of like not an overseer, so to speak, in our own minds about what's really happening. And so we misinterpret greatly. And then as we grow up and kind of develop an ego, this misinformation gets built into the mix. And that's what we undo when we do the course, among other things.
All right, I have to switch microphones. So yeah, that is I think one of the common themes that everyone here in this group and every group I've ever been involved in has been, because honestly, if we actually knew how worthy we were of having God's love, then we would not keep ourselves away from him the way that we do. We wouldn't hold ourselves back. And that's the thing that's just so sad, is that we're looking for love everywhere because we have that void in us that says, something really vital doesn't seem to be working in here. But the fact is, and I think this is a wonderful thing about A Course in Miracles. Probably the thing about the Course in Miracles that is most compelling to me is the direction that Jesus gives us to join with our brother, to love our brother, to give to our brother, to receive from our brother, because that is our relationship with God.
It is. And with everything.
Exactly. Yeah, the whole world, everything is our relationship with God. And so, Jesus doesn't say turn away from the world and turn away from, man and whatever and just turn to God. He says turn to your brother and join with your brother. And that's, I think, the reason that the group that we have right now is so helpful and useful is because we do that and depend on each other in a very real way. It's not only, it's not a huge group, but, and it's not only that we are companions in this journey, but that we really are friends and we love each other.
Of
And
course.
and that's, I think the thing that is so missing in our relationships is that capacity to join in that loving place. So anyway, I don't know why I said all that, but
Well, you need
but here we are. Oh, it's Muse, MEWS. Oh, okay. Can you put the title and your name in the chat, Alan, so that everybody can find your book?
I know that muse is a little bit of a funny word, but it's the book starts in right here in New York City, and there's a muse, which is an old carriage house road just a couple blocks away, and that's where the mystic of my novel first appears. So that's the word. But I like MUSE. It kind of works too. It's magical that way.
Yeah, I mean, I had a whole picture of what that book is about because of the mystic and the muse.
Yeah, it
So,
works both ways. So I'm happy with that spelling as well. Whatever you want.
all right, well, yeah, if you would put it in the chat, then folks could find it, and I'm sure that we would enjoy reading your book too. And please, I will give you the link to our website, and you can go and look at our schedule. Please join us anytime it says on Zoom. Uh, we have groups going on, and we have many of them every week, and about a lot of different things. So I'm not uh, like we have a couple of groups where we study Joel Goldsmith. We have people that are reading other books, Ken Wapnick books. Uh, Bruce Rawls, I don't know if you know Bruce, I think you do, Carol. He and I are reading Absence from Felicity on Saturday mornings. Every Saturday morning, I get up and read about Helen and Bill with Bruce, and we discuss, and we have just terrific discussions of the book. That's why it takes us for a long time to read a book. In fact, we're on page 113 of Never Forget to Laugh, and we've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe, have we been doing it for a year, Sharon? I don't know. We've been doing it for quite a while.
Right.
Well,
But
we do it at a very gentle pace. And,
yeah.
And it's like, for us, we just want everybody to join us because there's only one of us here. So it's taken as long as it takes, but the book is just incredible. I've had this book for years. And if you want, it's just what Alan said. When you read her book, it's the whole course. So.
Well, what's really interesting, I mean, I consider this not only interesting, but fascinating, is that I had all sorts of, you might say, little signs along the way that Bill was really a co-author, so to speak, deceased or not. He was there. And I was telling Alan and some other people about, a few like really remarkable signs that happened along the way. And one of them was partway through, I was talking to a psychic lady friend of mine, and all of a sudden she said, there's somebody here that's got a typewriter. Like, does a typewriter mean anything to you? And I said, oh goodness, it certainly does. And at one point I was driving on a 3-lane highway to somewhere, and I was on the inside lane. I was about to make a left-hand turn. And I looked over in the lane next, just glanced over. I mean, after all, you need to glance over if you're driving on a 3-lane highway. And there was a little space between the two cars over here so that I could see this direction to see the license plate of this car that was a bit ahead of me. And it said, the license plate was WNT-65. William Newton Thetford. He was 65 when he died, and the course began in 1965. It's like, oh, well, it's really hard to just dismiss that as a coincidence, which of course it wasn't. But the most amazing part, as far as I'm concerned, was the most amazing part was at the I'm writing the very end. You know, when you write a book, you don't ever exactly know what you're going to say. You know, you just write and stuff comes out and so on. Alan would know about that. You know, it just writes itself. So I know that I'm at the, you know, right close to the very end. And I had always had this sense that kind of Bill was around during this process. So I just talked to him out loud, although I'm sitting in my house by myself. It's like, okay, Bill, what's the name of this book? Because it didn't have a name yet. It was just in my computer as Bill's biography or something. So I get this in sort of internal message that says, you'll know when you get to the end of the book. And I said, well, I am at the end of the book. I was literally within the last couple of pages. And so this sort of inner message, well, you're not at the very end of the book. Okay, I'm not at the very end. And shortly after that, I go, blah, blah, blah. And never again will we forget to laugh. And it leaped off the page at me that Never Forget to Laugh was the title of the book. Because I had no idea what the title of this book was going to be. So I thought, this is just sort of amazing. And so I said, okay, now I want proof upon proof that you're really here. And so I get this inner thought that says, ask Judy Scutch-Whitson, ask Judy about the plaid dress. I thought, gasp, that's a very, very, very specific thing. So I write her an email and I said, does a plaid dress mean anything to you? And of course, I don't tell her why I'm asking. I just say, I just need to know this. So she writes back and sends a picture of herself in a plaid dress. And it's a picture of her at about 10 years old and her baby sister, who was a year old at that point. And it was the first time that her parents had brought in a professional photographer to take a picture of the two girls together. And it was one of her most prized possessions. And I thought, you can't make this up. It's like Bill is really around. I have every reason to think he still is around.
Wow, that is amazing. And I love it that it's the same kind of a notion I always get from the Holy Spirit about things when I'm trying to think about what I'm going to do in the future, what how to do something or the other, and I'll be like, what am I going to how am I going to do that? And I'm thinking, and I ask, Holy Spirit, how am I supposed to do this? And Holy Spirit said, it's not time for you to do this right now. It's not time. So just wait. And when the time comes, you'll know. And that I think has eased me so much in my generalized anxiety because I used to spend so much time trying to plan for the future and figure out what to do and what am I going to do when this happens. And every time I start up on that path, it's like that gentle voice just says to me, Lynn, you're not there yet. And that's what to trust to the point where you don't think about, how am I going to get it done? You just let it happen and know that it's going to happen.
Absolutely. And I have found that never fails one. In other words, it's like I've never operated out of that sense of trust where I felt betrayed. It's just never happened. Everything always just seems to behave like it needs to behave right off it. When I wrote an early little book a long time ago called Homeward to an Open Door, and it was not even yet in an official book form. It was just going to be I just written it. It was like a loose leaf binder kind of thing. But this was way, way long time ago. And somebody was about to go to a conference someplace and wanted this to be available. Well, the only way I could make it be available was to just have it be in a loose leaf binder. And a friend of mine was an artist, and she was going to draw some kind of a little cover. Well, she couldn't draw a little cover until I knew what the title was. So I was at a friend's house and I thought, yikes, I've got to hurry up and know. I mean, we're just like a day or two. That's about how much time I've got to figure out all of this. So it was like, go home and read the epilogue to the workbook. It's like, okay. And it's like, there it'll be. So I go home, read the epilogue to the workbook, and it goes blah, 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 blah. And we go homeward to an open door that God has left unclosed to us. And it's like, there you go. Homeward to an open door just leaps off the page. So it's like we're given really specific information if we'll just pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And trust that we're loved enough and cared for enough and integral enough and important enough to the whole that of course we would get all the help we need and all the direction and whatever resources we need. And once you begin to trust, well, of course, that would be the natural condition of things. It's only when the ego mind gets in there and decides we need to be punished and that whole thing needs to be thrown out the window kind of thing. Because the reality is we are taken care of, we are directed, we can trust that what we get is valid.
Yeah, that is perfect and beautiful. And please, if anybody has any comments or anything that they'd like to share, you can put your hand up and, because I'd love, while we have Carol captive, I think is a really good time to just, get what we can from her. My goodness. This is such a gift to us, and Ellen as well. And I'm really intrigued by your book, and I'm really interested in I'm going to buy it, and I'm because I love the idea of sort of is sort of a fiction, sort of a novel, is it?
Yeah,
With
I'll just say that, yes, it's a novel. It's a spiritual adventure story, I call it. It's dives into the metaphysics of the Course. And I was guided many years ago that the Course, the Blue Book is heavy, not only weight, but the content. And if there was a way to bring the story to people through a novel, through story kind of format, it would be very helpful. And Carol actually edited the book, which obviously was a great honor, and she made it course consistent. But she mentioned to me that the Course, and the Course even says this, will come, or Ken did a lot, the Course will come through many different avenues to people. And a fiction story appeals to a different audience, perhaps, maybe a different age group. And so it's a lot of fun. I mean, that's one of the things that I know is my journey and my mission is to make this spiritual path, this particular one, but others, more fun. I don't know what happened to the fun. I don't know who it was. I think maybe Ken told me this or said this, or maybe it was Judy Scutch, but said that nowhere in the Bible does Jesus ever laugh or smile. Now, that is impossible for somebody who's awakened. They'd be laughing and smiling, all like Bill. Never forget to laugh. His final message to Carol: don't forget to laugh. And so I hope the book is infused with humor as well.
oh, that's
And
wonderful.
by the way, I, of course, have read his book, and it's a wonderful book. For heaven's sakes, everybody should read his book. There's no doubt about that. In fact, I think he's such a good writer, he's going to write my biography.
Very good. I love that. I mean, I was thinking about that myself, not writing your biography. I was thinking about writing Dove's biography because I think those are stories that people would love to hear, and it's such a gift to have the the living people here with us. And a couple of things. Myrna, who is sitting next to you on the board there, maybe I don't know how yours is arranged, but Myrna here is an author too, and she's written several books based on A Course in Miracles, and she just wrote her first, I guess, kind of
Love
romance
story.
novel. What you can say it.
But I did want to say, I'm listening to Carol, and everything you say about writing, I totally, jump for joy with, because I understand the concept of waiting for the book to be written. In other words, I know with me, I had no story. And as I was writing it, the story kept emerging. And then every time I come close to finishing a paragraph, I would say to Jesus, I don't have I don't have another paragraph. I can't finish the book. And the next paragraph would come to me when I finished the previous paragraph. And I just love the way the book turned out. So I can understand what you're saying about writing a book. It can write itself. So
Wonderful.
I
It
love that.
actually does write itself. In other words, it's
Yes.
like, who knows at the beginning? So, and I guess you don't know that unless you have written a book, and then you realize, well, that's the kind of the way it operates right offhand. So it was a great experience. And I loved the idea. And I was really certain Bill was, in fact, I'm certain he still is around. That there's, and that the thing that I love about the course, the more you practice its principles and you're, really determined to be as helpful as you can to those around you and live your own life in as loving and honorable way as possible, it's like everything in life works out. This is the thing that is a guarantee, because if I look around, it's like I cannot find one single problem in my life I have to solve. There just aren't any problems. So there not only aren't any problems, like if from the most mundane to the most important, whatever that might be, there's always a sense of direction, like go here, do this, call this person, write this, so that it's not like one has to sit and wonder. And it's like, it's as if life is just better and better and better. Where I'm sitting in my house, I recently moved back from, I lived in Florida for a in Colorado, a very long time. Then I moved to Florida and I lived there for 33 years. And then I moved back here to Denver almost 2 years ago. Maybe a month from now, it will be 2 years. And my boy said, Mom, you're too far away from us. One lives in New York and one lives here. So obviously, Denver would win out over New York for me in terms of where I'm going to go. I know, for the New Yorkers, that seems impossible. But since I had lived here before, that made sense. And I have moved back into what was my late ex-husband's condominium, which my boys now own. But it turns out that it's like, this is how life works, is that he was quite a heavy smoker. And Nelson said, there's no way we can get the odor out of here. So they just tore it out. They completely tore the thing out down to the concrete block and rebuilt it. So it's brand new. It's not like moving into somebody else's space. It's a brand new space. Now, to a lot of people, what I'm going to say is going to sound really nuts, but part of me is an artist at heart, and having things be balanced and beautiful and things matching and so on and so forth is important to me. I just notice all those kinds of details. Well, right in front of me is a great big bay window, and it's almost like a giant painting on the wall. I have a lot of paintings on the wall. Well, there's a building across the street from me, and it's a kind of a wheat color, kind of a beigey wheat color that exactly matches the matting around a couple of paintings over my sofa. And the roof on that building is the exact shade of brown as the frames around this. And it's like I can sit there and go, I am so taken care of. The life is even arranged that the building across the street from me matches my living room. Which is like things working out down to the last little teeny weeny details. And it's like, now I realize that that sounds very nuts to people who aren't, don't think about things like that. But having the view out the window fit in and be balanced and work out with all of the colors and shapes and designs inside, as far as I'm concerned, is yet one more proof that all is well, everything is taken care of, and guidance just shows me every place I need to go, everything I need to do, wherever I put something that I don't know, remember where I put. And I find myself saying so often through the day, oh, you, and of course that would be you with a capital Y, sort of to the presence of all that is. It's like, you are so good to me. I feel like I'm constantly being supported and taken care of and so on and so forth. And that happens when that's our goal for everybody else, to take care of people, make things clear to people, uh, help them realize that the things like that unworthiness nonsense is a big lie. And here's what's really true about you. So that when that goal of I'm here to be truly helpful, remember that little part of the course where it says, I'm here only to be truly helpful. I do not have to worry about what to say and what to do because he who sent me will direct me. Do you know that that little 2-line part is the only part of the course that was not dictated by him? That was inserted because Bill had to do a presentation somewhere along the line that he absolutely did not want to do. He was not actually really crazy about public speaking. He certainly had to do it, but that wasn't his favorite thing to do. And in this particular case, he was supposed to make a presentation to some group, and he really, really didn't want to do it. And he got this little 2-stanza element as reassurance that, like, keep this in mind, Bill, when you go to visit this group. And because the tenor of that little saying is so in line with the message of the course, that they decided to include it. But that's the only little part that was not directly dictated by Helen, which I think is for most people are never going to know that, but now you know it.
That is really amazing. And I had heard that before, but I had also heard that Helen received it for him. So I love that. I love that. That's because I mean, that was Helen. One of Helen's main thing was saying that you could do it too. Anybody could do it if they just would be open to it. So I mean, he probably was hearing a lot of other stuff and just never really got that that was what it was. So
The thing that was important, well, many things important about Bill. One is that he was a hilariously funny guy. He could, he really had a sense of humor that was almost without parallel. And he loved sort of playing tricks on people, or not tricks, but yeah, I remember when I first met him and was first going out to California, and there were some people there from, it doesn't matter where they were from or who they were, but it seems like we were around a table. I don't know if we were having dinner or what, but when people would get to be too serious or maybe take themselves too seriously or something, he would do something to sort of make things a little more lighthearted. And when people weren't noticing, he had this amazing ability to wiggle his ears. Like, I have no idea how you can control the muscle, but he could sit and look like this and make his ears wiggle. Well, it was hilarious to watch. And so it was like he did this on purpose, because he knew that this was going to be, it would normally elicit a hysterical outburst, and you couldn't because of whatever it was that was going on. But he was very funny about things like that. He also had a healing type presence about him. It didn't have anything to do with what he did or what he said. It was his presence. People got healed just by being around him. And I had a couple of, well, more than a couple of very almost impossible to explain experiences myself, which is there seemed to be a pattern that a few days, maybe 2 or 3 days after I was with Bill, whether he was in Denver or I was out there, I would suddenly and inexplicably have a sense of being bigger. Now, that wasn't at a physical level, but it's as if somehow whatever it is I am had expanded and I could feel the expansion. Now, it's impossible to try to describe because you can't put words around an experience except to say it was startling. It would kind of come out of the blue. And the idea of just feeling yourself as bigger and not confined to a body, so to speak, was kind of an astonishing experience. But all of that had to do with, you might say, Bill's energy.
I absolutely can relate to that. And yeah, wow. I mean, that actually goes to your openness and willingness to be to be that.
Yeah.
I that just blows me away. That's really, really amazing. And what a beautiful beautiful story. Karen had her hand up. And then also Myrna has her hand up now. I'm gonna kind of wait for Karen. I think she might have gotten a phone call. So I'm gonna go ahead and call on Myrna, uh, please. And anybody else that has questions or
Oh,
comments?
by all means, no questions are off limits.
I put my question in the chat. I'm driving now. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well then let's go. Let's look at your question. The question for Carol or Alan. What do you feel makes the course different from other teachings? Oh, and putting your hand down because you're driving. What do you think makes the course different from other teachings?
Well, I would think that many teachings are, you might say, maybe intellectually sound. In other words, it's like somebody, truly and genuinely wants to share what they know. There's something about this that feels different because it seems like it really was from, the source was from another dimension than our normal intellects, and therefore sort of carries a sense of authenticity that a mere intellectual treatise by definition cannot contain. So it seems like it contained an energy or a wisdom, and our language fails us at this point, but that it's different in that regard, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that completely because it's not, it's a lot of people say the course is too intellectual, but the course is not really intellectual at all.
No, it isn't.
It's very practical and very, just because you don't want to hear what's being said, because what he's really telling us is, give up your bad self and join with your brother and become remember God, you know, and a lot of folks, they may say, oh yeah, I want to be awakened, but if it takes me having to give up this
My
world,
belief,
then
that
hey,
I'm not going to do it.
then I'm not going to do it. Yeah. And people don't even recognize their own reluctance because they think they're very willing, and I do the lesson every day and I do this and I do. Well, how many of our lessons say to us, today I will judge nothing that happens.
And I'm glad you brought up the lessons, because a primary mistake that people make, and it's an understandable thing, because in our culture we're taught to learn things, and when I have information, then I'll be better off, and so on and so forth. That's the way our academic institutions are set up and everything else. But the workbook is not about learning, it's about practicing. So when people try to intellectually learn what it says, you've missed the entire point, which is why, well, I don't know whether it's why or not. I all of a sudden was given an assignment. I no more planned to record all those lessons with commentary than I did plan to fly out the window. It's like, I'm busy. And it was like, all of a sudden, at the end of either 2017 or 18, I forget, it was like I was just standing by myself in my family room. And I get what I call my guidance telegrams. They feel like they kind of come in from the left-hand side and go across my awareness. So in comes the guidance telegram that says, record the lessons with commentary. And I remember and if anybody had been watching, they'd thought this lady's lost her mind, because I'm likely to talk out loud to a response to whatever I get intuitively. And I remember standing there saying, you have got to be kidding. Do you have any earthly idea how long it will take to record all those lessons with commentary? And it's like, and so the message just is, record the lessons with commentary. It's not interested in my feedback. Just do it. And it was like, yes. And it was long and complicated to do, but I wouldn't at that point have considered not doing it. And the same when it was time to do make a recording of the text, the same thing. It was like, I didn't just wake up one morning and decide to do that. That was an assignment.
Lynn, can I just say something really quickly?
Sure.
One thing is that Carol's workbook lessons every morning are amazing, and they're always 3 minutes or less, which I appreciate. And I've never met anybody in my life who is a public speaker who does not say or like, and Carol never does. It's really quite extraordinary. But let me just say one thing, because I know Myrna wants to talk, but I just in terms of Karen's question, for me, what I love about the course, and like so many people, the day I took many detours. Judy Scutch said she took 1,000 detours before she absorbed the course, but I did so. The day the blue book came into my hands, I knew it was the path for me. And for me, what's different, Karen, is that it is uncompromising, no compromise. You're all in or you're all out. And for me, that was beautiful. And it speaks to what you were saying, Lynn, in that Ken would say this is a simple course, but it's not easy, because going deeper means we're going to get to the heart of things. But there's no compromising. There's no, I'll have a little bit of the illusory world, and then I'll mix it in with my spiritual study. And it is not easy. Carol has a great comment about that. She says, this is not a course for the faint of heart. She says, sissies, I like faint of heart. And that's the truth. It is not a course for everybody, as Ken would say. It is challenging.
Yeah.
To the ego.
Absolutely, and beautifully said. And Carol, I have looked at your lessons on YouTube as well. And yeah, I do agree, beautifully presented. And I know that, Holy Spirit was right with you the whole time, helping you to do. I mean, these are technical things. I'm not, saying anything. I'm 71 years old. I consider myself kind of an old broad. I think I know how old you are, because you just had a birthday recently, I believe. And so,
about to have
in
about 10 days. Yes.
Okay. Well, happy birthday if we don't see you before that. But these are things that, I mean, figuring out how to do this. I'm not tooting my own horn here. I'm just saying, for me, or for anybody at this stage in our lives, to be just doing something that is completely new and unimagined. I never imagined, having a YouTube channel and a radio station and I never imagined any of these things, and I don't know how to do any of it, but what I needed to do came to me immediately when I needed to do it. And it was like, boom, there it was. And I don't know if it was that easy for you, but for me, it was like just just another day. So I appreciate you doing all that work.
Well,
I
you just said something that's very important, which is if we're given an assignment, we're somehow going to be given the resources to know how to do it. It would be completely unreasonable to say, do this and you're on your own, figure it out the best way you can. It was like, I remember being given all sorts of assignments. As I say, they feel like they come in like this, and where I often go, well, I have no idea how to do that, and it's like, well, I long since learned that if I'm given an assignment, somehow the resources will appear or I will get an idea. Okay. And what we often, possibly, some people have said, if I get an assignment, then I want to see the big picture. No, it doesn't often doesn't work that way. You just get, here's the first thing you need to do. And sometimes I've started things with, okay, I'll do this. And I have no, I would never know where it's going to end up. In other words, it's like I look back and go, oh my gosh, I'm glad I said yes to that because look at the result. And I have to tell you something else about being helped and cared for, because I think certainly in our, I don't know, for some people, sort of tumultuous times, really being anchored into we're safe and being cared for is a very important idea. It just seems like we should just know that we're cared for, so to speak. And there seems like we get um, lots of sort of feedback if we're alert to it, that everything we need we're always going to have and that we're always safe.
yeah.
It's just a key thing, because it's very hard to do your very best if you're always looking over your shoulder or wondering if something is the right thing or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And that's um um the issue that we have everything already. And it's my idea that something should be different, or I should have a different or that I can figure out a better way. And that's really important to remember or to understand. It's not up to me to figure anything out. It's I don't know. And if I don't know, then how can I do anything? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's ridiculous. It's like asking a 5-year-old to cook dinner or something, Okie dokie. Here's what you're gonna get. But I've never been asked to do anything. I wasn't given absolutely everything I needed to do it and in order, and there was no sacrifice and no nothing to worry about, nothing to fear, and everything worked out perfectly. Every single time, everything always works out perfectly for me.
It
And
does. If you follow your guidance, it's like you may be challenged, you may find you're having to do things you don't know how to do, but you'll figure that out. But if you're following your guidance, you cannot help but succeed. In other words, but if you make up a story about what you think is important for you to do, well, good luck. We don't know where that's going to go. But very early on, you can begin to see following guidance always works. Deciding not to follow guidance doesn't work. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be able to tell the difference in the quality of life. There's another thing that I often tell new students, if there's any new people here. You might feel bewildered within like the first 50 pages or so of the text. It's almost like Helen is trying to get her antenna still fixed in the early part. It's a little rocky compared to the smoothness that happens later on. So it's like, if you need to skip over the first 50 pages, don't worry about that. Just start later. You'll get everything you need. And in fact, I've often said, if you want to do a review, just read the last 5 chapters. but kind of like the last 5 chapters have just consolidated all of it. So the early ones are fine for when we're trying to do this very slow beginning, reprogram your brain kind of thing. But once you're already into what it's about, if you need a little refresher, just read the last 5 chapters.
I love that. What a great suggestion. And I think, somewhere along the line, somebody's doing the course or reading the course in a group all the time I mean, all year round here in Gather. So we might it takes a long time to get to those last 5 chapters when you're doing it the way we do it. So,
Yes, yeah, yes.
maybe we'll try a group where we kind of move along a little bit, because you're right. I mean, these are not new students. These people have been doing this for, excuse me, a very long time.
Myrna has her hand up, and
Yeah.
I too.
Yes, I see that. So yeah, Myrna, please go ahead and Dove.
That's perfectly okay. I'm enjoying everything that I'm hearing. In fact, so much of what I wanted to say is being said. So, but what I really relate to with Carol, and I get it, that everything will unfold if you just allow it to unfold. I call them miracles, experiencing the miracle. And I've been doing that lately so well. And for me, and I spoke a lot about this yesterday, in fact, when I was doing the Pal Talk with Susan Michelle, this is what was coming up, that I've learned that I have no fear. It's almost as if any fear that I ever felt or ever could feel is no longer existent. So without fear, everything now leaves room to manifest the way it's supposed to. And then you become part of the whole understanding. You get it, you see it, that there's nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to worry about. And all I can say is I am feeling nothing but joy. And I have a heart problem, which I just found out about. And that taught me a lot, that there's no fear. Jesus is telling me exactly what I need to do. And I'm feeling happy as could be. And all knowing, and I love hearing you, Carol, because I connect to that so completely and wholly, and it's indescribable. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And remember, the course says that fear is the absence of love.
Mhm.
So if we stay on the, of course I want, and that's not, of course, romantic love. It's like that unconditional positive regard, as Bill says. In other words, so it's like, well, if you just establish that, why not have unconditional positive regard for everything and everyone, including people or nations or circumstances that seem to be wacky? You can still regard them with a sense of unconditional well-being. And it's like, well, if one decides to do that, then there's no possibility that life can be anything other than satisfactory. So it's like, and speaking of that reminds me, and I haven't told this story for a long time, but speaking of, I'll make this very short. A long time ago, back before our children were born, and they're in their 50s now, my husband and I had read an article when I lived here in Colorado about something called the Colorado Indians that lived down in Ecuador. And they were called the Colorado Indians because there was some sort of a berry juice or something, and they painted themselves all red, especially their hair and so on. So we said, why don't we just, we had an opportunity, how does it matter, to be and to go on a little trip that went to 3 countries, including Ecuador. So we're down in Quito, Ecuador, which is about 10,000 feet or something like that. And we were greeted in the beginnings, like when the people go, here are your keys, here's where you put your luggage, here's blah, blah, blah. You're perfectly safe if you stay in the front of the hotel. And this is a big fancy hotel at the very top, but don't go around the back because there are still headhunters back there. It's like, what? Like, real live headhunters. It's like, yes, you could buy shrunken heads in Quito, Ecuador if you wanted to. It's like, well, that was an unusual setting for us to be in. But we had heard about these Colorado Indians being in a place that was not very far from Quito, Ecuador. So we decided we would rent a car and we would see if we could go find the Colorado Indians with their hair all painted red. So we were given instructions about where to go. And at this certain landmark, you make a left-hand turn and you start going through the jungle. So we've got this little rented Volkswagen and we're driving, and the jungles in Ecuador are really big jungles. So we're on this little narrow road. It's not wide enough for two cars because of course cars aren't going to be in there. And we go, where are these Colorado Indians? We can't find them anyplace. So we keep going around a curve, and all of a sudden this little dirt road with this giant forest on both sides ends in kind of a great big swampy thing. It's like, oh, now what are we going to do? There's no way to turn around. It's like before we have a chance to think, are we going to have to back all the way out of this? Over here on this little hillside appear 6 Ecuadorians, not the Indians we're looking for, but Ecuadorians, and they've all got great big machetes like this long in their hands, kind of like, so here we are imprisoned in our car with a big swamp in front of us, and 6 guys with great big machetes appear on the right-hand side. Well, Bob Howe, without giving it the slightest thought, and he's a big, tall, blonde, handsome guy, and these little short Ecuadorian guys. He just hops out of the car, walks right up the hill toward these people with the machetes. They all get big smiles on their faces. They drop their machetes. They all come down, and the 8 of us pick up the Volkswagen and turn it around so that we can get out. But that presumption that everything is fine and everybody's friendly and whatever, I don't know whether it saved our lives, but it certainly saved us a lot of hassle to just presume that everybody is your friend, including the people in the jungle in Ecuador. So it's like that, I think, is just amazing. I'm still amazed about that, about how we were taken care of then. And then fast forward many years to when I was recording the videos that we recorded, my filming partner and I recorded a while back. We were filming these in the great big, community room of the place where my filming partner had a condo. So we were able to rent that space. And we always had to go in about 4 hours early to get everything set up. And we would start at 3, and we filmed these once a month on a Sunday afternoon. And so, as I say, it took us a long time to get ready for this. So on this occasion of the 7th out of the 8th, when we go in and the fire alarm is going off, and it's like, well, this isn't going to work. So the janitor or whatever you call him, it's like, can you make that stop? And he said, I've tried to make it stop, but it won't stop. And I mean, every couple of minutes, off goes a fire alarm, which you can hear very loudly throughout this building. Well, this is going to be impossible because every few minutes, a great big loud racket is going to be recorded on our, in the sound. How awful. So can't you call the fire department, have them come over and fix this? Because we still have time now. And they said, no, the fire department doesn't fix anything on Sunday. It's like, well, I guess they go to a fire, but they don't fix anything on Sunday. So it's like, well, I don't know what we're possibly going to do. I want you to know that after this thing going off for, I don't know how long before we got there, but for 4 hours, every 2 or 3 minutes, the fire alarm goes off. I thought, I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know how we're going to be able to make the sound, after the fact work properly. And I don't know how everybody's going to be anything but driven crazy with this thing going off. The very instant that I started our program, it stopped and it never came on again. Now, if that's not being taken care of, I don't know what is. I think that's a very dramatic example that when your intention is to be helpful, to do the right thing, to, in this case, disseminate valuable information, then you're going to get whatever kind of help you need to facilitate that. And I think that's incredibly reassuring.
You know, that's such a beautiful story, and I'll give Dove a chance also, and then Mickey also has her hand up. It's such a beautiful story because you wouldn't have known that
No.
if that thing hadn't been going off like that. So there was a purpose to that the fire alarm going off, and you know, when you just said, you know, okay, let's just do it. You know,
Mhm.
you learned the lesson. You learned,
Right.
you know, not going to let these things disturb me, or you know, not going to plan for a disaster in the future. Because basically that's what you're doing when you're thinking, oh, this is going to be a mess and things are not going to work out right. You know, you're already planning for disaster. And when you just stop doing that and just do what you're being given to do, then everything happens for you. And it's interesting that you've said that perfectly cared for so many times, because that was the message. And Dove, I don't know if you want to talk about this, the message that Dove got when he was in the hospital with cancer. Dove, I'm just going to let you talk, and you can say anything about that if you want or not.
Which message in Kansas? What?
That you're perfectly cared for.
Okay. All right. Uh, Holy Spirit or something gave me a thought to ask you, Carol, and maybe Alan too. How would you like to be a regular teacher here at ACIM Gather?
And do a what? I didn't understand
How
what you.
would you like to be a regular teacher with your own weekly program, which is streamed on YouTube and on the radio on a regular weekly basis?
Oh, it's a very sweet invitation, but I am so overloaded with work now. I'm trying to get stuff off my plate instead of back on. So
Very good.
I
Well,
I would be happy to do an occasional something, but no possibility of regular.
okay, then I'll make the invitation to Alan. Maybe your schedule allows you to take a half hour or an hour. We have a lot of openings, so
Dove,
please.
Dove and Lynn, I'd love to do it. So we'll talk offline, but we'll figure something out.
Okay, very good.
I'm kind of busy too, but Carol and I are actually going to be meeting this coming week to work on a writing project for her. So
Uh,
I'm all over the place, but absolutely we'll work out something at least twice a month, and I'd love to do it. Thank you so much for the
okay,
invitation.
I have two other things to say. One is with regard to what Bill was given the thing, I'm here only to be truly helpful. I heard from Ken Wapnick that he was nervous because he was speaking to a group of his colleagues.
Yes.
And the meeting was in Princeton. I can tell you that. The meeting was in Princeton. And Jesus said to Helen, give this message to Bill. And that made all the difference in the world.
Mhm.
And the other thing is, with regard to what Lynn just asked, I was in a hospital going through the after effects of chemo. My entire immune system had been blown. I was in Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. And I said, after 3 or 4 days, the doctor said, well, your vitals are getting better. You'll be out of here soon. I said, I've never really been in the hospital outside my tonsils when I was a kid. I said, Holy Spirit, why am I sitting in a hospital room for days after days? Yeah. And I heard as clear as I'm speaking to you right now, you are perfectly cared for. And I knew that that was true. I mean, here I am in Mount Sinai, the best doctors, the best nurses, the best everything, and I'm complaining. I am being perfectly cared for. And then later I realized that's true for all of us. We are all perfectly cared for. And he tells you this in trust. Under trust, he says, teachers of God have trust in the world which is kind of funny since he says there is no world. Have trust in the world, for they have recognized that it's not governed by the laws of the world. It's governed by a power that is in us, but not of us.
Absolutely.
Of course, we're all perfectly safe. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Beautiful. And thank you.
And could I give one promo, not for me, but I don't know if you're closing up, but
Oh, no, we go on. In fact, this is now the beginning of another program called Tuesday Morning with Friends. And we have this conversation. So you
well,
can go on for another hour.
oh, well, I'm going to have to leave in about 20 minutes, but I
I've
do want
got
to
a
say,
client after a while.
That's inconvenient.
I
I'm
do want
sorry.
to say that if nobody has heard it, that John's Sunday with Monday on Sunday had 4 octogenarians, but first family members, Carol, Diane Brooke Gusick, Dove, and John himself. And it was amazing. And particularly Dove and Carol, well, they all were incredible. The stories, but particularly what I loved was Dove and Carol both spoke about this, was a question I get all the time, which is how do I strengthen my intuition? How do I hear it better? How do I act on it? How do I follow it? How do I validate it? And it was all there. It was so incredible to see these people with the 50th anniversary of the course coming next year, and they've seen the entire 5 decades, and it was just beautiful. And it'll be up on John Mundy's YouTube channel, I guess, in the next couple of days. But thank you too for that, and off to Diane and John as well. Big hearts. It was great.
Thank you.
It was amazing. And I was so inspired. And several of us were there at the meeting, so inspired by it. And of course, my heart, my chest was like about to burst because I was just so proud of Dove, and just hearing him just overwhelmed me. Because we've been friends for a long time, and it's just so wonderful to see someone that you cherish being recognized in that way. And I'm sure you felt that same way about Carol, because when you love people, it's so wonderful to see that other people love them too. So Mickey has her hand up, and then Brooklyn. So go right ahead, Mickey.
Thanks. I've got a question for Carol. It's actually a 3-parter about following guidance, which is, I think, everybody's favorite topic. One, have you ever not followed or been very tempted to not follow guidance? And what happened if you didn't? And have you ever procrastinated in following guidance, like for quite some time? And then the third part is, and if you didn't or procrastinated following the guidance to a certain time and then said, oh, okay, I'm going to do it now, and figured out that lag time was the perfect time.
I think
Was that too convoluted?
no, it's not too convoluted at all. I think one of the things for which I feel eternally grateful is that I somehow got the message when I was a little kid about following guidance. And so it's not something that sort of I adopted as a good idea as an adult or something like that. In other words, it was like all my life, it seemed like that's been a foundational way to live life. So it's not like halfway through I decided, oh, I think I'll follow guidance. It seemed like it was kind of baked into this is how life works. And I remember thinking when I was 7 years old, it's like, and my mother, as I may have mentioned, like, oh, honey, you need to get up off the floor because it's chilly down there and you're likely to catch cold. And I thought, what is the matter with the adults? You don't catch cold because you are cold. So it was like just somewhere from very early on, I just sort of knew things and what I would call following guidance from the beginning. So it's not like I lived part of my life not following guidance and then suddenly made some kind of a shift. It sort of was just always there.
The reason I asked is I got some guidance maybe a couple of years ago that I was like, oh no, 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 no. That's not something that I'm in the least bit interested in doing. And I put it off and I put it off and I got a nudge and I got another nudge. And very recently it came through, now's the time. It was okay if you put it out off before, but
Okay.
now you have to do it. And I was like, oh, okay then.
If you're not going to leave me alone until I do it, then I will do it. Yes.
It was kind of like that, but then it was also a very clear mandate that it was fine if you put it off before. That was not a problem. And I didn't get an insistent kind of thing. It was just a sort of nudge and you might want to go do this.
Well, I
And
don't know if
now it was like,
no accidents about the timing
yeah.
ever. There just aren't any accidents, period. Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought, does anybody else do this? Like say no?
Well, the fact the time itself is not real. The fact that you didn't do it then doesn't mean a damn thing, because there is no then. There's only
Right.
now. So, and I love it how Jesus says to us, what I can't remember exactly, and somebody can correct me. If you want to be like me, I will help you. And if you don't want to be like me, I will wait until
Until you change your mind.
you change your mind. And that's it exactly. Their time has no relevance in any of this. So, if somebody told you, if the Spirit told you to do something 50 years ago and you're just now doing it today, it's the same day, it's the same moment, it's the same instant. There has been no gap, which, it didn't happen. It doesn't exist. Now is the only time that anything can be done. So, that's how I see it anyway. And it seems to work for me that way, because I work on what I call, I came from a background of engineering and government work and uh, uh, commerce, basically. And there's a principle in many areas called just in time. You don't buy the thing until you need to use it. It's like grocery shopping. If some people go to the grocery store every day and get what they're going to have for their meals for the day. I mean, in Europe, that's common. It's just in time. I only have it now because I need it now. And that's how the Holy Spirit works, in a just in time way. So, I can't say I'm going to start saving my money, today so that I can go to, Scotland next year, for instance. Um, I mean, that happened to me. I was invited to go to Scotland, and all of a sudden everything came together, and me, who had no money at all, had enough money to buy tickets and fly there and stay there and do all kinds of things. Um, if I had been saving for that for years, then I would never have had enough. I would never have had enough. But the fact is, I didn't plan it. I didn't ask for it. It just came to me right when it came to me, and everything I needed came to me at the same time, and it worked out perfectly. All this planning or thinking that something needs to be done at a certain time, it just is not true. It doesn't, there's no need for it. Um, we
Can I
just
say
have to live
something?
now. Go ahead.
I see Brooklyn's hand up, so I'm not, but I have to say, David Hoffmeister gives the best visual on the timeline. What he says is, most of us, certainly I do, think of the timeline as like, think of it as a line of spaghetti, a simple strand of spaghetti. And here's the past, here's the present, here's the future. And he says, if you take that piece of spaghetti and just turn it on its end, the past, the present, and the future are all in one dot, and it helped me tremendously to think about time, because I've certainly thought, oh, I had regrets, and the future is all about worry. And I don't know, that was a very helpful, simple visual for me.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it is. I mean, if you wanted to, put it together in some sort of a theoretical framework, yeah, you could see that that's exactly how it is. And I love how Jesus talks about it. It's going from the horizontal thinking to the vertical thinking. So instead of going along the track, tuka 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 tu, all of a sudden you're like in a rocket ship and you're looking and you see it all at once, everything all there. And it's always been there. You just didn't see it because you were stuck in that little horizontal place. So the same concept, and I love that spaghetti talk. That makes a lot of sense to me. So thank you for that, Alan. Brooklyn, please go ahead, my dear.
Beautiful analogies. I love it. Oh, mighty, namaste, mighty companions. And Carol, it's so good to see you. Sharon texted me and said, why don't you come on? Carol's here. And I was doing PT listening on ACIM radio. But then, I thought, yeah, why not? Take a break. And I just it's always so wonderful to be here. I had written a poem for Sunday with Monday with John. But I had to meet my brothers, so I had to leave early. But I heard everybody, and I can't wait till it's on YouTube. But I would like to read this poem. It was inspired by octogenarians, the thought octogenarians, and then it just flowed. I call it In Love. Labor pains of many decades, birth to now in greater depth. Here, as all among thought, feelings, lessons seen in vision's trust. Past hormone era, we know the inner, all now used to be of self. The world peels its layers of time as love blooms, always here.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Sweetie, that was really beautiful.
Thank you.
Really beautiful. Brooklyn is our poet laureate. So she always has some beautiful poetry for us, and it's such a gift to us that that we have so many people with so many great talents. It's just makes me really, really just proud to be a part of this group and to be one with you all.
We fit together.
Yes, we do.
And I call Lenny Lady with Many Arms and a heart in every arm.
When I love you, I love all of y'all, but you hardly ever come around. And when you come, I just get so excited. And you look so beautiful on camera. I can see your soul, sweetheart.
Aw, I love you, Lindy. You're such an angel.
Thank God for us. Who would have thought when we were kids, right? Who would have thought?
You know what? I did, and I bet you some of you did too. I mean, I honestly remember so often when I was a little kid being just so upset and disappointed because I didn't get to meet everybody in the world. I was so sad that I didn't get to know everybody who ever was. And I was a big time reader. I read a lot of books. And so when I would read these books, to me, the author would become like a friend to me. And then I would just cry because I want to talk to that person. They've said something to me and I want to respond to them. I want to join with them. And, I think when I was listening to Alan talk about his book, the idea, because so many of those books that I read, especially when I got up toward being a teenager, were books that had deep psychological and spiritual meaning to them. Books like Siddhartha or Stranger in a Strange Land, or books that were popular and heard, that people knew about, that had these deep philosophical and psychological um, uh, um, tones that influence the story. And I would read those books and I would want to know those people. I would want to know who wrote that. I want to be their friend. I considered them my friend. I was just so, as a kid, just so uh, wanting that joining. And, I just remember crying because I couldn't have that as much as I wanted it. And so, when I found A Course in Miracles, and, to me, I keep, I'm always saying that the major thesis of A Course in Miracles is the oneness of our being, and that connectedness of us, and that we are God's holy Son, together in one being. And so, you know, and to know that, Jesus was a guy who saw the Christ in everyone he saw, and he remembered God, and became associated with the Christ. That became such a compelling thing to me. And this is why, Carol, you bring up unconditional positive regard. And of course, I'm a great lover of Marshall Rosenberg, and I do nonviolent communication, and have for many years studied and worked with nonviolent communication. That was actually a phrase that came from Carl Rogers, who
Yes.
Bill worked with. And
Mhm.
it's just it's so amazing to me how, these things, these concepts have actually come to life
Mhm.
and have a real real essence of reality to them. I'm long-winded, but I'm not even sure what I'm saying, other than that's why we do what we're doing. This is why we do what we're doing. And Lindy has her hand up. Please go ahead, sweetheart.
Yes. Um, I came in a little late, so I couldn't hear a lot what Miss Carol was expounding on, but I did hear she's an author, and I wanted to ask Miss Carol, are you by profession a psychologist also?
I'm not a trained psychologist. I'm a mathematician by education, but I have done private work for decades now, and I do a vast amount of it, and I adore it.
Wonderful.
So
Well,
I have private clients scheduled throughout all my week, every week.
so is that like a life coach, would you say? Is that like the same thing as a life coach?
You can call it, I guess, whatever you would want to call it. I call it, I find that 98% of what anybody has an issue about is always a relationship issue. And so
Mm.
over the years, it established itself. I didn't do this on purpose. I realized that there's a process that I take everybody through so that they can begin to see that the people that they think are the problem people are not the problem people. They are the mirrors to your own guilt. And then
I
a process to resolve that. So, as I say, I didn't do that on purpose. Many things that I've done in my life, I didn't start out to do on purpose, but they organically grew as the circumstances and requirements and so on changed. So, it's a process that seems to work for everybody. So anything that works for everybody, I keep trying to clear my decks enough to actually write a book about it. It's like I'm trying to have enough time to write a book about it rather than just not talk about it, so that it becomes um, an absolutely guaranteed guide. And of course, it's based on the principles of the course, but it's very practical and very specific, and you don't have to be a course student to follow through with it. And because by this time, um, I have enough feedback, if you will, from the fact that this works for everybody, that I cannot go to my grave without getting it written. It
Oh,
just
yes,
simply has to be
yes.
written.
That's a wonderful thought. Thank you for sharing, Miss Carol.
Thank you for that question, Lindy. I just love you so much, and I'm so grateful that you're here with us right now. It's very cool. At first I'm like, who is this Path of Loved Ones? But then immediately I knew it was you. So
Oh, bless your heart. Well, thank you so, so much. I never, ever, ever tire of being involved with groups of people who are involved with the course. I mean, it's like it's sort of the heart of my being in some way, and I really do love it.
that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank God for that.
Lynn, I need
Brooklyn
to
has her hand
go.
up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I need
Alan,
to
go
run.
ahead.
Yeah, I need to run, but I just want to say the whole time during this wonderful show, I've been looking over Carol's shoulder, and one of her dining chairs is doing this, like a thumbs up, and I love it. And that's how I felt about the show. It was fantastic. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Alan, would you put your email in the chat,
I
please?
actually did already, Lynn.
Okay, good, good. All
You'll be
right.
able to reach me,
I'll
but
just
I'm
have to
sorry I
say,
need to go. I thought it was an hour, but I have something scheduled at 12.
when we get going, we just keep going.
Yeah, thumbs up. I love you.
All right, my
Bye-bye.
dear. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it so very much. God
See you
bless you.
again. Bye,
Safe
everybody.
travels.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah,
So,
Brooklyn, you're muted, honey.
Wow. I'm so thank you, Sharon. Why don't you come on? I'm there doing PT listening in the radio. And I was, but anyway, when I was younger, I thought if this was all there was, it's got to be a cool joke. I was entrenched in ego. That's why I'm still blown away when I think about it. And what happened? This Dove wrote, we live in a sea of synchronicity within an ocean of love. Yeah, yeah. When you're in the flow, oh my God. I went into AA, and there I found Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love. And I read that 3 times. And I would, and then let me lower hand. And then I had to find out the book she was talking about. So I got the course, I opened it up, and I started reading, and I was my breath was taken away. I said, I'm validated. This makes sense. And I gobbled up the text. And then when I got to the lessons, I felt like I hit a brick wall. What? One a day? What? And but I did. I got to the last lesson. I found Interfaith Fellowship, John Monday. Yeah. And yeah, the synchronicity is amazing. Then Rabbi Gelberman, I met Rabbi Gelberman. I had to say, oh, what's the seminary all about? It's just been it's been a flow. And like right now, ego's fight, like at this point in my life, ego is fighting me. And I just remember the years of, like not paying too much attention to ego. And ego says, well, let's go back there. And I says, no, we got to get through this, to continue. And I am so grateful for us.
I wanted to say, Brooklyn, do you want to know why it's so amazing that there's so much synchronicity? Because we're all connected. He tells you that's the whole idea of A Course in Miracles. There's only one of us.
It's a gift to be able to see it, to recognize.
Yes, that's true. I want you to know, when I first heard of synchronicity, in those days, I said, "Well, that's amazing." I said, if I have one of those a month, that would be really amazing. That was years and years ago. Then I started noticing I had like 2 or 3 a month, and then I started noticing they were happening almost 2 or 3 times a week. And then I realized what's going on. There's no accident. Everything is happening perfectly. Perfectly. It can't happen any other way.
As my disembodied boyfriend would say, far out. Yeah, far out. To realize this, what a gift.
Can I just share something? I think I heard it in the course. One of the participants said, have you ever wondered why somebody all the way across the other side of the earth got your blood type? I thought that was profound because it is true. We all have the same blood type, A, B, O. But then there is a thought that I had because I met some people that had a rare blood type, and it started with an R. I don't remember what it was called, but she was sharing how her body, or how it takes up so much dis-ease in her body because of this rare blood type. And so my question is, could that be the test tube babies? You know how our world wind up making babies in a tube? And I'm not sure if their blood type is A, B, or O. I'm thinking it's that rare blood type. But if you want to help me out with that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about that. I'm not. I don't think that test tube babies are any different blood type. I think they're all basically whatever blood type combination of their parents. So that's my understanding. I may be I may be incorrect in that. I'm not sure, but I don't think where the egg and sperm are put together really matters all that much. If a baby ensues from it, if they put it in a test tube, or whatever natural means, or however you do it, it doesn't matter. If it's those things are put together, they will uh, more than likely turn out to be a baby. So I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to your questions, Lindy. Brooklyn, please go ahead.
I think I have an answer.
Good.
Bashar, he's so Course in Miracles. The story is different, but the core is the same. So, people resonate with aliens, who knows? Anything is possible in the stories, right? So maybe an alien has R.
Thank you, Brooklyn. Oh, bless the name.
Or maybe we are all aliens,
I thought that was constantly on my mind. Because after I think it was someone in the course that mentioned that we all have the same blood type. And isn't that amazing? And then I thought about that rare blood type. But thank you, Brooklyn. I appreciate it. Could be aliens.
Anything is possible in the story. Any story is possible, But Bashar, he like Daryl Anka channels Bashar, Bashar, who's an alien who, very interesting story. Some aliens were sent down to for some reason, my memory isn't as good as it used to be, but I forgive myself. And in and they got too familiar with the people on Earth. So we're the product of, this is what Bashar says, we're the product of, mating with aliens, humans now. So they got to watch over us and take care of us. But anyway, that's just a story. So he challenged, but like the concept, if you listen to him, he's so coarse. He's so on course. Yeah.
I was going to say something because I think this about guys, people like Bashar and um, Abraham and all these, where people are getting messages from someplace outside of themselves or outside of, what we think we are. If there's only one Son of God, and we're all the same thing, then what is an alien? I mean, it's just a projection of my own thoughts. Or, what is another planet? It's a projection of my own thoughts. What is another universe? It's a projection of my own thoughts. So, all that is, it's all fine and good. And I appreciate, having the message being, given to us over and over. But, I think I don't think it's any different than Jesus, Helen ascribing the voice that talked to her about the Course of Miracles as being Jesus. It's still the same mind that's here, and there are no aliens. There's no other planets. There's not even this planet. It's like this is where we're expanding and expanding in our thinking to things that you know don't really exist, and we were just making them up as we go along. Anyway, that's my point of view about it. I don't see how could it be if there's only one, how could there be yeah, there might be other planets. Yeah, there might be other people on other planets. There might be all kind of things. But all of it, every single bit of it is out of the imagination of the Son of God who remembered not to laugh and made up the whole thing all at once. It all exists, but it only exists in my mind. If that makes any sense.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I I don't express myself right when I talk. I express myself.
Yes, you do.
No, I was saying in this story, there are many stories, and different people resonate with different stories to bring them home to the reality. So
Yes.
there's different stories. And like, yeah, it's like, in a way, Bashar is there's some people that believe in aliens, or believe in the story and aliens. So they're more drawn to to that, and they hear the message that through that way. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
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 And it's the same thing. I mean, it really is the same thing. Myrna, please go ahead. You're muted, honey.
Yeah, I like what you said, Brooklyn, about aliens, because you ever hear of the Pleiadian culture? I've read books about the Pleiadians. They're an alien species. It's fascinating. And I just Googled it. Okay, I'll read you a paragraph. Pleiadians convey themselves as generally peaceful and to be concerned with the welfare of Earth. Contactees often claim that Pleiadians are interested in the future of our planet from an ecological and sociological perspective, transmitting messages about environmental sustainability and the prospect of world peace. Members of this group have also been described as maternal, wise, spiritual, and jovial. Pleiadians are very well spoken of in certain circles. And the reason is that for some reason, what I've read about the Pleiadian, going back, is that the Pleiadians really were ahead of Earth. And when the human species started to become, started to develop, the Pleiadians almost played with our DNA. They did things, they were playing with us almost like, changing the human condition. And now they're sorry for that because they have created a lot of havoc due to their initial, what they had initially had done to really tamper with what the human culture was supposed to be. So now they're here really making up for what they've done. This is what I've read about Pleiadians, but if you look it up, it's a fascinating thing. So I like that, Brooklyn. You're ahead of your time here. So,
That's what the Shaw says.
anyway,
As long as the story involved is
but if you ever get interested just in learning about it, it's Pleiadian, Pleiadian. You'd be surprised what comes up about that. Anyway. So they were the furthest thing from my mind, but when you brought up aliens, I had to just bring that in.
Yeah, and as Brooklyn said, there's lots of different stories. So, well, and of course, if you read Gary Renard, this is something I believed my whole life since I was a little kid. So it didn't surprise me at all that his teachers tell us that we actually came from Mars. And I believe that. I always believed that. When I was a little kid, I used to say, I'm from Mars. We're from Mars. And, everybody thought I was nuts. But I was just convinced. I was convinced I was from some other planet because I was just so different than anybody else. So I didn't fit into anybody anywheres. But I always, had this idea that I came from Mars. So anytime I've ever read it anywhere, I'm like, yep, I understand that. Anyways, Brooklyn, please go ahead.
I never really felt part of any group. And thank you. Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, me either. So it's pretty cool that we found our tribe. I finally found our tribe. That's the way I look at it.
Marina, I took a picture of you. I hope you don't mind. And I showed it to my friend. I says, guess how old this beautiful lady is?
Oh, how sweet.
65. You said 65.
Oh, tomorrow's my birthday, actually. I'll be 83 tomorrow. So,
Oh my
what
goodness.
you mentioned.
No,
So,
Happy
no, wait.
birthday.
thank
I
you.
don't, you,
Yeah.
Myrna, you look beautiful. Listen, 50
Yeah, thank you. I love hearing that because all my
and
life
the
I
mouth.
always strive to, I don't know, I was always so vain all my life, overly so. And now it really feels like I'm being told more than ever, what I always wanted to hear all my life, but thank you. I just
Gotta
feel
be the course. Gotta be the course. You don't have a body. Take care of that spirit, baby.
thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. And I look at people like, of course I spent a week with John Mundy in Scotland, and is he 83? Anyways,
81, I think. 81 or
81. Yeah. So I mean, he is running around like a freaking teenager. I get, I'm like, my goodness, I'm I feel well, of course I had COVID, but I didn't know that I had COVID. That sort of changed everything once I realized that was what was wrong. Because I had never felt that miserable in my life as far as, physically, in just tired and hurting and still running around and of course he's walking up the path, but I'm like, I best get my little sprinting shoes on because he's long gone. And he could have walked on more and more. I mean, honestly. So
He
you know,
does yoga, he swims.
yeah, yeah. And he's been through a lot. I mean, he's been, almost died so many times. And I mean, still, he had cancer, he had encephalitis, I mean, just all kinds of stuff, and
I,
still,
I remember visiting him at the hospital after he had open heart surgery. Yeah.
yeah, but that's that Missouri farm boy.
Oh,
So,
I'll tell you, we have our experiences, right?
uh,
Another
uh,
story is that we chose to experience stuff. That's
yeah,
another story.
yeah. And right now, I mean, what's the point of us even being here now? I mean, obviously, according to Jesus, our job here is to be teachers and to and to be here to help him save the world. So just like I was talking earlier with Carol, if the Holy Spirit wants me to do something, he's going to give me the means to do it. And that's been my quest the whole time. If you want me to do something, I'm trusting you're going to give me the means to do it, and you're going to give me the energy to do it, and you're going to give me the will to do it. You're gonna help me want to do whatever it is that you want me to do. Because you want me to write a book, okay, give me whatever it is that I need, and I will write a book. I have not gotten any indication from anyone other than other people that I should write a book. I've never gotten an indication from the Holy Spirit or Jesus telling me. Now, if they said to me right now, when it's time to write a book, I will write a book. I'm a good writer. My goodness, I spent a big part of my career writing technical manuals and reports, and of course that's a lot different than writing a fictional thing or whatever, or anything about spirituality. I don't even know what I would have to offer as far as that someone would want to read. I mean, that's all what I say. Who would want to read this crap? And that's why I stopped writing, because now I can't even imagine anybody wanting to read it. Now, you may say, yes, Lynn, I want to read your book. Well, that's, all fine and dandy, but if you want to read my book, just come here and talk to me.
I
Because
was just thinking,
everything I'm going to say it right now.
Yeah, but you said something about Dove. That's what I want to say. Because if anybody can write it, you can, and we'd all help you. Because he deserves something. He's done enormous work in this community for years.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And just
I think
get
it
those
would.
stories down. I mean, that's the thing I'm thinking, get those stories down, it's just like, Robert Perry did with the big Purple Book. He documented a bunch of different stories about the different people and their situations. And, that was all, I think, really maybe the most valuable part of that whole book, because I don't need all that intellectual footnotes and all that stuff about the course. I don't need to know all those things that they added in, but the stories I like. So Myrna, please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I think if you wanted to write a book, I don't think Jesus is going to tell you to write a book. If you had a desire to write a book and you had the outline of the book in your mind, that's all you need. All you need to do is just go and write it, and it'll write itself. As Carol said, that's how a book is written, believe it or not. I've learned that. And that book will, and you might not think you have any ideas. You might think that who's going to want to read it? I'm not, how am I going to progress with this? But all you have to do is start. And then you'll start to realize as you progress along, hey, this is going somewhere because I'm being told a story as you're doing it. So I mean, and the reason I say that too is the reason my last book, the one I just wrote, is so important to me, because that book has taken me on a journey that I would absolutely not exchange for anything, because I had an idea about writing a romance novel. In fact, my sister was the one who said to me before she passed away, years before, you should write a love story. And it never really occurred to me to do so. But when I started to, if I had, well, finally, I thought about it, just thought about it, and a picture emerged about an outline. But I have to tell you, this book really took me on a wonderful, exciting journey. And I think the story is beautiful. The words, the thoughts, the love that comes out of it, the physical love that comes into it came to me as I was writing it. So people say to me, is this book you? I say, no, it's strictly fictional. It's not me.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Myrna.
So I
Brenda,
just
did you
wanted
want
to
to
tell
say
you
something
that.
else?
oh, I just want to say, yeah, writing a book is different than getting together a bunch of poetry. Yeah,
It's the thing, isn't it? Doesn't your poetry write itself in a way?
yeah, but I'm too busy writing poetry, and I'm so and I not up to date on. I can't even copy and paste yet. I'm not up to date on technical things, so I think writing a book is different than getting together. This is my poetry for the year so far. The 1 year.
Well, yeah, you express yourself through your poetry, and that's what comes out. The love that comes out through your poems is your communication, and it's wonderful. I
I
mean
know.
that really because it's so touching. It's just so beautiful. Everything you write is just about beauty. That's what you're in. That's what you know. So that's great. You can
I,
keep going, keep doing it.
and if I, get in, maybe I'll meet someone who knows how to put everything together because I'm too busy writing to find out how to put everything together. So I don't know.
Well, Amazon, you get somebody to help you do it through Amazon. They'll publish your book for nothing. You can do it through Amazon. They'll publish your poems, but you have to get somebody to put it in order for you and do all the technical stuff. I couldn't do that either. So if you really want to do that, you can start with Amazon.
Well, right now, thank you. Right now, I'm like living the I try. Thank you.
You may
Right.
not want to get it published. Just if you did, that would be your way. If you don't, just keep going with it and collecting it and just
I
enjoying it.
get it. I get it in the meetings, which I appreciate. The poetry helps me, and yeah, I express myself better without the like yeah.
But that takes practice too. The ums and the ah and eh and what. I've gotten much better at that too. That was my biggest concern when I was speaking. I can't speak. I falter too much, but I think it takes practice.
Like anything else. Be vigilant for God and his kingdom, no matter what form it comes.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, absolutely. And so yeah, again, I don't even I started writing a book writing about my life, myself, and I just came to a point where I said, what the hell am I doing? People don't need to know my story and relive my past. Because I'm thinking that it just, it just I don't know, it reinforces the ego in my mind. So I don't want to do that. It's not something that I want to do. So maybe
Right
things will
now,
change.
anyway.
Right now anyway. Yeah, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. If there's actually a book for me to write, it'll come to me and I'll write it. And just like everything else, if it's there for me to do, I'll do it. And
Well,
no
we all
doubt
could
about it.
help you, Lynn. We could help you with the biography of Dove too, because a lot of us go back that far.
Yeah.
Like, for me, I think that he was instrumental in my process, until we moved to Awaken Together. I found him a walking course.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I've seen, too, over the years how, you know, his he's just been reinforced over and over and over, which is I think something that people like to see is especially if they go through, situations like, cancer or their wife passing away and going through all the hardship that, they went through when she was ill and just in general, how he came about to
Well, you
be
could get
our
a mic
mentor.
and have him tell us the story, and then we could all like help you. I mean, the thing is, like, if somebody is this old and they've been doing this work for so long, it's just a celebration of their life. That's what
Yeah,
I look at.
yeah, yep, I agree. But like I said, the only reason I just wanted his stories to keep going on, and actually they do because he tells them. So we hear them. We heard them the other day on John Mundy's group. We'll hear them again when we replay that. So we do have it. It's not like it needs to be put together somewhere. I don't even know. I have no idea.
I think we're living it.
Yeah, we're living it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if it's meant to be put in a book, it will.
It will be, exactly. So I have been on here for a very long time.
My grandchildren are 16 today, so I'm going too because I'm taking them out.
Okay. I think I'm just going to put on some music. Odzie's here. I think she and Wayne, hopefully Wayne will be here, and we can, and if he's not, then that's another thing. But I'm going to put on some music, and then I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to just go take a real 10-minute break, and I'll be back to set up for Odsie and Wayne. So hang on just a minute. I'm going to stop the